All right, so today we're going to be making an Oreo drip cake. So delicious, so moist. All your guests will be impressed by what you're making. And so we're going to move right along here. And today we're going to go on and get started with dumping all of our dry ingredients into the bowl first. And Joe, would you go on and get going here?
So we got the sugar.
The sugar. We're going to put the sugar in there. That's right. Perfect. We're going to use AP flour, not cake flour for this, guys, please. Chocolate cake is somewhat moist and of course it's pretty dense, so make sure you use the right flour. We're going to go on and put our cocoa in there. There we go. Use a really good quality cocoa. Don't get cheap on these items. This is something that really makes a difference in the end. You're going to go on and put your salt in. You're going to put your baking powder in. And you're going to put your baking soda in. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go on and whisk all of this together. Go on and get that done for me, Joe. And you want to make sure you whisk this really well, just to make sure all of your ingredients are properly incorporated. Anytime you're using any type of flour, unless it's something like, say, a dough, a bread dough, make sure that you pre-whisk and sift it to lighten up that flour and make sure you're not getting more flour in there than you want. Also, you're going to be doing that with your cocoa as well. Make sure to go on and pre-sift your cocoa so you're not getting too much cocoa into your batter. So we're looking pretty good here. All right, looking great. And so now what we're going to go on and do is we're going to go on and we're going to incorporate all of our wet ingredients in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on and add this in, add the buttermilk in first. Perfect. And then from there, we're going to also add in our eggs. Looking good. And then we're also going to add in our vanilla as well as our oil. So chocolate cake is generally a dump job. It is not complicated. In fact, it's a great cake for amateur bakers to make because it is an easy dump job, and really you can't go wrong with that. So now what we're going to go on and do is we're going to put that on our stand mixer and mix that on. Start at low and then gradually increase your speed, and this is going to mix for somewhere around let's say about 3, maybe 4 minutes. You're going to want to scrape down your bowl side somewhere at the 2-minute mark just to make sure you're getting everything nicely incorporated. And Joe, while that's going, you can go on and put your butter into the microwave.
All right.
Perfect. Go on and do that for me. And what that butter is going to do, now some people, they do not put butter into their chocolate cake, they only do oil. But what I found just in my own experience is that the butter adds a richness to the flavor that your guests will not forget. And it's very tasty and it's worth it to go on and do that and add a little butter. So Joe, yeah, go on and do that. So go on and get that done, and you're going to go on and mix that in really good. And so what he's doing is just making sure it's well melted. Right, I think that needs to go back in the microwave. Make sure your butter is fully melted. You're not going to want any thickness left in there because it could create lumps in your batter. So we're going to want to go on and pop that back in that microwave for maybe another 30 seconds or so. Just make sure it's fully melted when we get it going. So perfect. And while Joe is doing that, we're going to go in and check back on our batter, and it's looking really good right about now. And so what we'll do is we'll go on and turn this off. So perfect, looking wonderful. And so you're going to go on and add that in there. Perfect. And you're going to go on and we already scraped down our sides, and now all we're going to do is get that butter nicely incorporated in there. All right. Perfect. All right, guys. So now we're going to move on to our next and final step. We're going to take this water and we're going to put it in the microwave until it's boiling hot. And then after that, we're going to add this 1 teaspoon of instant coffee to that water. We're going to whisk it really quick and pour it into that batter. And it should be a really quick step. Some people wonder why you add in that hot water. Well, it's to make sure that everything in there is fully incorporated and that it's a very thin batter. And so it makes it a much moister experience, and coffee really enhances the flavor of chocolate. A lot of you probably already know that. but pretty much in anything chocolate that I make, it always incorporates a little bit of coffee. And by the way, I almost always use instant because instant is always available and I don't have to go and brew a whole pot just to put it into whatever I'm making at that moment. So that's something for you guys to remember at home as you're baking these fantastic concoctions to wow your guests. These are really simple shortcuts for you that you can abide by, and it will really intensify your chocolate dessert. And so we're about done. Let's go on and check on our water and see if it's ready. Let's see here. Needs a little bit more time. Keep in mind it does need to be boiling hot, guys. So we're gonna want that, you know, nice and hot when we're putting it in there. Now we are getting our hot water out and we're gonna get ready to incorporate it with our instant coffee. So we're gonna go in and get that going and then we're gonna add that to our batter. Perfect. And just make sure when you do this, just make sure that it's fully incorporated with that water and then you're good to go. Make sure to turn your mixer on low, guys. So at the shop, so Joe and I, we own a bakery, we own two. And so at the shop, we make massive amounts of cake batter. And let me tell you something, if you're pouring it in and that mixer is up too high, you're definitely gonna splash it out, and I've done it many times. So keep that on low, just an FYI for you guys. All right, we're gonna pour that in slowly. Don't do it too fast, guys. Nice and slow, we don't rush baking. So I do have shortcuts, but we don't rush it. So all right, looking good, smelling good. We're starting to really smell that intense chocolate flavor, and it's gonna be so delicious, and I can't even wait. All right, Joe, how's it going over there?
It's going pretty good.
You know, he's actually looking like a professional, guys. He's not the professional. I am. So my husband is actually the one that does all the sales, all the behind the scenes stuff, everything that makes the business run. That's what Joe does. I run the kitchen. So I'm the one that makes all the recipes. I manage everybody in the shop and make sure all of those kind of things are going smoothly. And something else interesting I do that doesn't have anything to do with baking, I do all the copy. So I do all of the advertising and things like that for the business. I'm the one that came up with the logo you see here. There's a little cat. That's all my doing, and that's one of the little side things I like to do for fun. So how are we looking over here?
We're looking pretty good.
Looking good. All right. That chocolate is really coming through, guys. So, all right. Looks like we're good. We can turn that off and give our bowl one last scrape. So for this particular cake, I always like 3-layer cakes. Now, usually people are surprised because they're used to getting 2-layer cakes, but I think that 3 layers is a lot more exciting and it creates that wow factor. So we have 3 8-inch pans that we're gonna be using, and we're gonna be preparing those briefly. And by preparing, you'll see in a minute, but basically you're gonna wanna spray that pan down, put in a little round sheet to make sure that your cake does not stick to the pan. This is very important. And we're gonna go over that step with you in just a moment here. All right, guys, so we're gonna go on and get started here. We're gonna go on and take our 8-inch pans and we're gonna go on and prepare them properly for you guys. I'm gonna show you the way to do that. And what we're gonna do is I use my own special concoction to line the pans just so the cake won't stick, but you can actually use spray oil as well. So just any spray oil that you like, spray the pan thoroughly and then go on and spray. You're gonna also use a cake circle and you're gonna spray that as well. So go on and get going with that.
And just liberally?
That's right, you're gonna liberally make sure to get your pan. If you're using spray at the house, which most people is what they have, you're gonna just make sure you spray all the surfaces of the pan. The way my husband just did that, it was so much, it was definitely, he's adding more, that's too much. But well, he's my amateur. So that is why we're doing this right now, guys, so you can know the proper way to do it, as well as the improper way. Let's see what Joseph is doing. All right, he's getting a little bit better, guys, looking good. All right, we wanna make sure to cover our surfaces, but not to make them incredibly thick like mud. All right, looking good, Joseph. Okay, you can put that down, that looks nice. Take some of that out of there and add that in there. Honestly, in the kitchen, it's never really a mistake. There's just little things that we adjust here and there, guys. So don't get too, nervous when you're in the kitchen, you make a few mistakes. Usually they can be fixed. All right, so that's looking good. Not too much more. You don't want to put too much of that in the corner. And by the way, you don't want to overspray your pans at home, guys. Just keep in mind, you know, just a light spray, and that's good enough. All right, looks good. And so now what we're gonna do is, we're not quite done with that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these cake circles in there. Some of you guys are gonna be like, well, why do I need to do that? Well, guys, when you have had the kind of disasters I've had in the kitchen, which is you make this beautiful cake, right? And then suddenly the cake won't come out. And then suddenly it does come out, it's broken. Now you're sad. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure to take this and make sure to sort of push your cake circle around. And by the way, you can buy these cake circles at pretty much any online retailer. They're very easy to find. So go on and lightly brush the top of that. Perfect, just lightly, nothing too major because we already have it done. All right, perfect, just a little bit. Why, you're asking, did I also brush under the parchment paper? The reason why, because if you don't, there's a chance that this right here may not come out easily, and so suddenly you have a little issue. So I just like to be safe, maybe a little over safe, but it's better than making that mistake that I was just telling you about. So that looks really good. And so now we come to the part where we're gonna evenly divide this batter amongst these 3 pans. Now, generally speaking, I use a scale to do that. I pretty much use scales for everything. So you at home, you know, as you're learning how to bake and you're figuring it all out, use a scale. I cannot tell you, scales really make your baking accurate, and then everything is on point and it looks good. And everything, like for instance, your layers are gonna be even all the way around. Right now we're sort of eyeing it a little bit and winging it, but it's okay because I'm the expert and I'm guiding my husband's hand. And so when you're at home doing this, just keep in mind, even if one of your layers is a little bit bigger, it's okay. People aren't gonna care. It's gonna be delicious, and nothing has to be constantly perfect. And coming from a Virgo, any of you know any Virgos like me? You know, we're perfectionists.
I'm shocked to hear this myself.
Yes, we are perfectionists. If I'm saying it, it's okay. So now what we're gonna do is we've gone on and prepared our oven at 350 degrees, guys. And this particular cake is gonna bake, it depends. So this is a convection oven. If you have a conventional oven, it may take your cake a little longer to bake. Simply, in conventional oven, it might take around 30 minutes, but in this convection oven, it's probably only gonna take about 22 minutes. We're gonna check and see, but we're gonna go on and pop that in on the middle rack, not on the top or on the bottom. That will burn your cake. And then while these are baking, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna go on and move on to our wonderful Oreo frosting, and we're also gonna move on to our ganache, which is really gonna make this cake pop. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move on to making the drip for our Oreo drip cake. And this is about to be so delicious, and it's really easy. So what we have here is we have 1 cup of mini chocolate chips. If you want regular chocolate chips, you can use that as well. We have ½ a cup of heavy cream, and we have 1 tablespoon of instant coffee, which is my secret weapon. That actually enhances the flavor of chocolate, as we discussed earlier. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna dump all of that right in that bowl. That's right.
And so now these chocolate chips, are they semi-sweet?
They are. They're semi-sweet chocolate chips. That is what you wanna stick to. You can also use milk chocolate chips if you'd like. That's your preference, but I do prefer semi-sweet. And so perfect. Joe has dumped all of that into the bowl, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop that into the microwave on high for 5 minutes. It is the easy, no-nonsense way to make ganache, and I always do that at the shop. I do not put ganache on the stovetop because I have to pay attention, and I don't wanna do that. I just wanna pop it in and forget about it. So that's the way you can do it at home if you wanna impress people and make a really nice dessert. Pop some ganache in there really quick, and then take it out, and you can put it on anything, fruit, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's delicious. All right, so now what we're gonna do after my husband here finishes dropping things on the counter, we're gonna go on and get ready to crush our Oreos. So we're gonna go on and pop those in there into our food processor. Hopefully you have a food processor at home. You can get it really inexpensive. It's worth investing on one of those if you're gonna start baking or doing any kind of cooking, actually. So we're gonna go on and do that. All right, and we're gonna go on and, we can pulse it, but I actually prefer to put that on high. Hold this too while you're doing it. You don't want it to fall out. There we go. And we're gonna pulse that into a fine crumb, so we're gonna go and let him do that. Very fine, guys. Basically, it needs to look like dirt. Okay. All right, let's take a look and see how we're going here. How's that look, Joe?
It looks pretty good if I don't stop destroying things.
All right, let's see. Yeah, it looks really great. It looks like a nice fine crumb. And so we're gonna go on and put that there, and we're gonna set that to the side. We can actually go on and put that back in the bowl because we're gonna be using that later. Perfect, looks great. Thank you very much. And so we're gonna set that right here and leave that because we're gonna use it later. And now we're gonna take a quick look at our chocolate chips just to see where they are. All right, looking good. It's actually come along really nicely. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our whisk here and we're gonna whisk it a little and see where we are. They might actually be ready. Oh, look at that, looks good. So, you know, this is a good example. All microwaves, they have different power. You're gonna know what yours is. The microwave we have at the shop, it takes a lot longer to do this, but this only took 2 minutes. How amazing is that, guys? Quick, easy. So that looks really delicious, Joe. Good job. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna set that aside for right now. And what we may end up doing is once we're done frosting our cake, we may pop it back in there briefly, and then we will go on and start dripping it. And in fact, what we're gonna do right now is we actually need to put this into our drip bottle, but I guess we'll do that later. So we can just go on and put that aside, and we will go on and get going on our frosting. All right, guys, so we've gone on and put in our ganache in this nice little bottle here to prepare for the drip in a bit here. So we're gonna go on and put this right here. And now what we're gonna move on to is the actual delicious Oreo frosting. So what we're gonna start with is we're gonna start with our butter. We're gonna put that in there. Make sure your butter is nice and soft, as in any recipe to do with baking, unless it's pie, you're gonna wanna make sure, pie dough, you're gonna wanna make sure your ingredients are room temperature and softened so they incorporate properly. Go on and dump in your shortening. You're gonna need some shortening. All of our recipes will be available for you to click on a link and you'll be able to get on there and look and see the exact recipe we used. Perfect, he went on and put his vanilla in, so that's looking good. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on and put that onto the stand mixer. We're gonna mix that for a bit, and then after that, we're gonna go on and put the rest of our ingredients in. So perfect, all right. Then mix that for a bit. Make sure with your powdered sugar, make sure that you actually sift your powdered sugar to make sure you don't have lumps. Now it's not as big of a deal with this recipe because of the way we're gonna be putting it on the cake. But if you were to say make a recipe where everything needed to be super smooth, you definitely need to sift your confectioner sugar. All right, and so we're gonna go on and do that. We're gonna mix that for a little bit, turn that up high. When you do this, you're gonna want your mixer on medium-high speed to get a good amount of air into your butter shortening mix. Some of you might be asking why we're using shortening. It's not all natural. Well, shortening hides a multitude of sins with cakes when you're frosting them. Shortening stiffens up your frosting and makes it much easier and a much smoother process to frosting your cake. All butter or all margarine, it can be okay depending on what you're doing, but I pretty much almost never do that because of the challenging nature of frosting the cake when it's all butter or all margarine. It's a very soft frosting, and that's really not what we want. All right, looking good. So we're gonna go in and mix that again. Make sure to always sort of stop maybe in the 2-minute range and sort of going and scrape down the sides of that bowl to make sure everything is being properly incorporated with your mixture. All right, we're looking good. All right, Joe, you can go on and turn that off. And now what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be adding this a couple of cups at a time. And this may look like a lot of powdered sugar to you, and it is. It's actually 2 pounds. Why, you're asking? Well, I always make more than I need. If you make just enough, there's a very good chance you're gonna run into not having enough. Suddenly you have to make it again and you're annoyed. And you don't have time because your guests are showing up. So let's just go on and do more than we need. I doubled the recipe. I'm gonna show you when you click on the link, I'm gonna have the single recipe as well as the double recipe so you guys can know how to do this. All right, so we're gonna go on and mix that. Make sure you have your mixer on low during this part. Again, if you put it on high, it's gonna poof up into your face and you're gonna look like you were at a wild party. All right, so Looking good. All right, it's perfect. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start mixing in just a little bit of this. How are we looking over here? All right, we can put in just a tad bit of that. There you go. Good.
And this is cream that we're adding.
Yes, that is heavy whipping cream. By the way, you can also use half and half. But heavy cream, I find, just adds that richness to your dessert that cannot be mimicked through milk or through half and half. So I always use that. So that looks really good. All right, perfect. I'm gonna keep mixing it in. Now your frosting is gonna be a little thick at this point. Don't worry about that. We're gonna mix the rest of this in. And by the way, you can even, if you find that it's super thick, no problem. You can just add in a little bit more cream until it's a consistency that makes sense to you. And so we're gonna continue mixing it on low speed. And Joseph, you can go in and add in a little bit more of your heavy cream. And occasionally you may see my recipe on the counter. You know why? Because I have tried, now there are certain recipes that I have up here. Other ones, when I try to act like I know the whole recipe, I don't know. Always make a mistake. Guys, I'm just like you. So I use recipes at the shop, use recipes here. So don't be surprised if you see a little piece of paper on the counter. All right, guys, and now that everything, all of our ingredients for our frosting is fully incorporated, we are gonna go on and get ready to add our cookie crumbles. So we have just a couple of cups here, a few cups, and we're gonna add them in a bit at a time. Now you're gonna go on and get ready to turn that on. And turn that on low speed because we're just trying to incorporate that with the buttercream and make this beautiful looking frosting, which is already getting going. It looks so delicious. Can't even wait to give it a go. And then, all right, you can turn that off and you can go on and get ready to add the rest of your crumbles. Actually, just add like another third of it, and I think that'll be enough. There we go, looks good. Perfect. So we're going to put that aside and we're gonna mix the rest of that in there, and it's looking really delicious. And we're gonna go on and get ready to set up our cake in a moment here and go on and get ready to frost that and put drip on it. All right, guys, so we have our wonderful Oreo frosting in our bag along with a 1M tip. And we also have our offset spatula we're gonna be using. So we're gonna go and get started here. We're gonna sit this down, and what we're gonna do is this. We're gonna take this and put a little of this on a plate. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this acts like glue so your cake doesn't slide around. You definitely wanna do that, it's very important. And you don't want, nothing's worse than a cake that's slid and you get to the party and it's just sad. All right, so what we're gonna do is we have these on some wax paper sheets. So we're simply gonna take this, do this, turn it upside down, and there we go. We're gonna get going. Let's push that over a little bit. Now with chocolate cake is super, super sticky. So I'm gonna tell you something, if you don't have it in the right place, literally that icing is like glue, and unfortunately it probably won't move without tearing, guys. All right, so we're gonna go in and do this. I'm gonna put a nice little bit of that frosting on there, and we're gonna go in and get this going. Put a good amount on there. You wanna make sure people can really taste those Oreos and that frosting, get that whole full flavor experience going. And so we're just gonna ice a nice little bit. Ice to the edge, guys. There we go. We're gonna do that. And then we're gonna go in and stack the rest of our layers. Now, sometimes, occasionally, you'll need to level your cake. We'll go over that in another episode. But when your cake layers are domed, you may need to level that out so that it's nice and straight and your layers look nice when you're done. Let's toss this out really quick. We're gonna add in some more of our frosting. And already, you know, we're getting a little low, so that's why we made that double batch of frosting earlier, just to make sure we had enough, and it was a good idea to do that. So there we go. We're gonna do this again. Spin this around. And I am using a little cake decorating spinner here. So if you see that, it helps really to get one of these going. You can get them very inexpensively, pretty much from anywhere, in order to make it much easier for you to decorate your cakes. If you don't have one, don't get me wrong, you can do it, but it can be super duper annoying. So it's better to just go in and invest in one of these little cake, basically it's like a lazy Susan for cakes. And then that way you can easily decorate it and have no problem. If your cake is a little uneven, that's no problem. I deal with that all the time at the shop. And you simply sort of look at your cake, sort of eye it, and simply sort of balance it against the side that might be thin versus the side that's not, and then it'll come out nice and even. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take the rest of this, we're gonna ice the sides and tops, and go in and get that thing finished up. We don't need a ton, because we're just doing sort of a crumb coat here. And then we're gonna pop this into the fridge. So there we go. I'm gonna spin this around. And also, if you're planning on transporting a cake and it's hot, okay? I've had a lot of issues with transporting buttercream cakes when it's hot. Generally, what you can do to really make sure your cake arrives without sliding, you can put a straw in the center that acts like a dowel, but it needs to be a bubble tea straw. Not just any straw, not like just a regular drinking straw, but one of those big ones. And you use that and you just stick it in the center. Good to go, easy peasy. You miss a lot of hassle and things like that you might have just by doing simple little things like that. So, just a little tip for you people at home. So we're gonna go in and finish icing this all the way around. Now, just so you know, my icing is a little thick. So what I would do when you're crumb coating this cake is to take a little bit of cream, add in there, thin it out a little bit so you're not tearing your cake as you're frosting it. Because this is a very soft cake and it can very easily happen. Now, luckily, we're gonna be doing more than one coat on the cake, so it's not a huge deal, but you don't wanna tear your cake up if you can possibly avoid it. Just cover up any spots of cake that you can see exposed. Go in and cover that up for us. We're just gonna go in and pop that into the freezer. Okay, guys? All right, guys, so now we're gonna go in and get our cake out of the freezer. It's nicely chilled. We're gonna go in and put that final coat on of frosting. And this is the fun part. So what we're gonna do is we thinned out our frosting with a little bit of cream because it's a little thick and we don't wanna rip our delicious cake. So we're gonna go in and add on some more here. Be generous, it's okay. And then we're gonna spin that around and pretty much do the same thing we did. Except what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be covering up those imperfections that you see. You won't even know they're there. It's gonna look amazing, guys. So here we go. We're going around and finishing this up and putting on this final coat. And then we have a little tool, another tool that's a bit unusual that we're gonna use for this. And normally painters use it to spackle things. And let me tell you, it is amazing as a tool to ice cakes. And it is this, you see that? Inexpensive, and honestly, I can't do without it. So we're gonna do like this. Get some of this extra icing off first. We'll clean the rest of that up later. There we go. And then we are gonna go around these edges. And what we're doing here is we're smoothing it. All right. We're gonna get some of that extra frosting off because we don't need so much. We're gonna take this offset spatula. You see all this extra we have at the top? We don't need that. We're simply gonna go, we're gonna use inward motion. So swipe inwards like that. And you're gonna even out your layers. See how pretty that's looking? It's looking amazing, right? And see that? It's all coming together. Any little spaces you see that are holes, no problem. Just add in a little bit of frosting, fill that in, and smooth it back into towards the center of your cake. And there we go. Look at that. Easy peasy, and she's looking good. And so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take, if you have a little wet rag, just take it and go around the edges and clean up that look. And we're gonna do our drip before I add on the final touch here. So we're gonna do a little drip, and Joe is gonna do that part. Before you get going, make sure to start with your bottle down on the cake. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in a slow motion and we're gonna start slowly squeezing. Go around, that's right. Squeeze, do intermittent drips. Look at that, looking good. All right, perfect. Looking good, Joe, all right. Joe's looking like an expert, guys. This is gonna be you. You know, look at that. Yes.
Stress is real.
Oh my God. Guys, it's not stressful. It's fun. That's how you need to be looking at it. It's fun. Go around. Make sure you're not creating these spaces like my husband is. Keep a continuous motion going here. Very good. Yes, you don't want to have gaps. If you do, it's no problem. You can just go back and fill your gaps in with a tiny bit of chocolate. Nobody's gonna be mad about extra chocolate. All right, looking good. Okay, that's enough, honey. You're doing a lot of drips. All right, that's good. Oh guys, this looks really great. So what we're gonna do, you see these little spaces? So you can go through like this and just add in a little chocolate. No problem, right guys? Perfect, look at that. If you want longer drips, simply squeeze your bottle gently a little longer so your drips go all the way down to the bottom of your cake, okay? So you want those drips to be dramatic, and you want differing sizes of drips. You don't want them all to be the same size, and that gives your cake a lot of interest and excitement and depth, okay guys? Again, there's no mistakes. You can just go back and fix anything that went wrong. It looks gorgeous. Joe did a fantastic job with that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our dollops. So we're gonna add this in. I can't wait to see my husband do this, guys, because he has never done it.
I'm excited.
So all right, we're gonna add them in. So what we're gonna do, let me just show you first. Okay. I'll demonstrate for my husband, and then you guys can be thinking about it, and that's it. There we go. We're gonna do them all the way around.
Just right next to
Actually, you can do them, you can intersperse them like one here, like give it a little, yeah, like that. It doesn't have to be right next to each other. Oh, interesting. So my husband does it in the opposite direction than I do. So I was a little surprised by that. But that's cool, guys. It's no problem. Looks good, not too much. So you don't want a huge dollop at the top, but it's not a big deal. We're gonna put, look at that. Let's spin it around so you can see it, guys, at home. Looking good, all right. Don't be afraid to use your turntable as you're doing this too, guys. There we go. All right, for you all at home. Joe is doing a great job. I'm ready for him to take over. So when we have our next event at our house, this guy's gonna do it. We're definitely gonna get him to do it. I'm always trying to get him to cook more. Maybe we'll get him to bake more. We're gonna see. All right, looks good. All right, look at that, guys. So we got that going. And so now what we're gonna do is we have these cookies broken up into pieces. What we're gonna do is this. We're gonna add them like so. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm gonna let him finish that up, and then there we go. We're gonna keep adding those in. It looks amazing. All right, how's that look? And look, guys, so if you have a little extra cookies like we have, what you can do is you can actually sort of add that in at the bottom as a little bit of a garnish. So it looks really nice. You see that? It's just pretty. You just use your little extra cookies there, give it another little look, and yeah. And we are about done with our fantastic creation. And another thing that these cookies do is it hides any kind of mess you may have made on your plate. So nobody can see it. Nobody knows, nobody but you. All right, guys, that's it. We have our gorgeous, beautiful Oreo drip cake. Very easy to make at home. It's a great beginner cake and it's delicious and it looks gorgeous. And there we go, we are done. Thank you so much for watching today, and hopefully you will watch our next episode.